Here is constitutional lawyer and a host of the Gray Matter podcast, Leighton Gray. He's here to talk about the CRTC's decision to deny a radio license to Christian TV show Talk Truth. Leighton, what's going on, my friend?
Great to see you. Nice to meet you, Rob.
Hey, Leighton, how's it going, sir?
Yeah.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah. No, it's great to be on here and to meet you and be introduced to Nico's audience.
Yeah. I'm liking the background. Is that live from Notre Dame? Or,
This is.
I should get one of those.
This is not my usual background. I'm actually in. I'm in Nevada right now because my son's down here. He's playing junior hockey, so we drove him down to get him set up. So this is a background. I think this is the Cambridge Library. I think
it's like Nico with the fake books that he's never read.
No,
he's got our Jughead double digest inside those covers.
Wow, low blow.
Oh no, that's nothing. This is the way we roll here.
That's how we roll here.
He's a liberal. You got to give him something, like something.
Wow.
Well,
you know, there's treatments now for that, Rob. It is treatable. There's hope for you.
I mean, to be fair, being on the show has been a treatment in and of itself.
No, seriously though, we have to. It's great. We have to be able to respect other people's views, even when we don't agree with them. You know,
for sure.
Because and to me, that's the biggest problem we have in Canada right now. Is that there used to be sort of a Venn diagram with conservatives, of which I'm one, and liberals, where we agreed about most of the important stuff and we would disagree about some of the other stuff. But now, that intersection, it's just lost because what the Liberal Party of Canada is called now is, I mean, they're not liberals. They've been hollowed out. It's really a communist party, if you can call that, sort of a combination of communism and fascism and eco-terrorism, in my opinion. But they're not the liberal. They're not Jean Chrétien's Liberal Party. Those guys were actually a pretty good government for Canada. In fact, I would, if Jean Chrétien's government were around today, I would vote for them. Paul Martin was one of the best finance ministers our country ever had. But again, we have to have these conversations. A friend of mine, Bruce Party, who's a classical liberal, we have these conversations all the time, and that's the real problem. The attack on free speech right now is that we cannot have speech that could offend anyone. Just look at what happened in Great Britain with that poor guy, that comedian. Yeah.
We covered
five police officers. Like that's
armed
cops, and that's coming here. That's coming here.
Yeah. Oh, it's literally exactly what we said last night.
And it's not because they're trying to arrest me. That guy is literally the definition of a.
Oh, he's almost 60. He's almost 60.
He ain't fighting anything.
He's
they could have sent a woman. They could have sent a woman cop, and he probably would just. It would have been.
Okay. No, of course he would. He wasn't gonna fight anything. He's an elderly gentleman. It was meant to intimidate. It was meant to send a message. It looks like it's back.
Ideas are dangerous, which was kind of the point of the CRTC ruling that Nico wanted me to talk about. You want me to segue into that, Nico, and explain kind of what's going on?
Yeah, because I'm just going to say that we don't know each other outside that we recorded last week, and we were on Jason Levine's show together. It was the first time we actually spoke. You explained what's going on, and I'd like to for you to redo the same, and I'm going to pit the same idea that I came up with as you were talking last week.
Okay.
Because I'd like to develop that, because you'll notice I record a lot of content with Jason Levine. Love what he does, but I'm a fucking crazy person. I swear. I'm a French guy, right? As you saw on the show last time, I was trying to contain myself and be very polite when I'm on other people's show, but I do believe that we need to start standing up, and I think that the idea that I proposed last week, you seem to agree with it. So I want to bring it back so that we can actually dive more into that idea. But if you want to introduce the ruling of the CRTC regarding the denial of a radio station, of a radio license for Christian TV show Talk Truth.
Yeah, well, it probably won't surprise the people who follow you and listen to your programming that the government of Canada is attacking Christianity on multiple fronts. But they probably don't realize how this is being done through what's called bureaucracy. So these are not the people that we vote for. These are people who work in cubicles and offices, and they're ideologues. They're handpicked, and they basically follow the orders. These are the people. This is the banality of evil that Hannah Arendt talked about. That made what the Nazis did possible. And these same type of people are working in the CRTC. So the story is, we have really a legendary Christian broadcaster. His name is Alan Huntsberger, and his son Corey. He has started the Miracle Channel. He's been involved. Alan has been involved in Christian radio in Canada going back like 50 years. And so there's a gentleman who owns, I won't say his name because I don't want to get him into trouble here, but he owns a Christian radio station in Saskatchewan. And he's been going at it for about 30 years. And so he wants to sell it, but he wants to sell it to somebody who's going to operate it as a Christian content radio station. He wants that legacy to continue because he thinks that's important. So he enters into a contract, which the last time I checked, the Supreme Court of Canada has recognized the sanctity of contract in cases like Bazin and following. So they enter into this contract in good faith. And so they're going to sell this radio station to the Huntsbergers. Mm-hmm. Here's the problem. You can't grandfather the license. You can't grandfather the license because the bureaucrats in Ottawa, they say you can't. And so what they've done is they've set up, through bureaucracy, through regulation, a system whereby if you want to get a license to broadcast on the airwaves, which evidently are owned by the federal government now, you have to sign on to all of this woke stuff, which, of course, if any Christians are listening, and even people who are non-Christians, many people who are just small L liberals like Rob here find a lot of the woke stuff offensive. Mm-hmm. But what happened was they were faced with basically the examination where, are you going to play Indigenous programming? Are you going to play LGBTQ programming? Are you going to talk about critical race theory? Are you going to run advertisements, that talk about this stuff? And of course, they refused because this stuff is offensive to them as Christians. Their license was denied. So what this does is it literally does a number of different things. Firstly, it destroys a freely entered into contract between a purchaser and a seller. And that shouldn't be happening in Canada. That should not be happening in a free and democratic society where we're running on on a capitalistic ethic, which has been very, very good for Canada for a really long time. It's the best way to ensure human flourishing that we found so far is capitalism. So that's a problem, number one. But number two, essentially what happens is the CRTC says you are never going to be able to sell this radio station unless it is sold to a buyer that we approve, and that buyer will have to sign on to all the stuff, all the Trudeau stuff, all the stuff that many Canadians hate, at least all the ones who are sensible. And so that's a real problem. These guys are controlling who can own, and so what's the point? Well, the point is they're going to end Christian broadcasting in Canada. They're going to kill off all the Christian broadcasters by not allowing them to hold licenses because they will not sign on to this basically Soviet ethic of following all the woke rules. But it gets worse than that, because when you read the letter, what they say is, "Oh, Huntsbergers, we know that we are violating your right of freedom of expression. We know we're doing it, and we're telling you that we're doing it. But here's the thing, guys. You don't have any right of appeal. You really don't have any chance of having a court review this because the government of Canada, the federal government, has given to the CRTC the power to review its own decision. So here's what they do. They violate freedom of, and people who live through COVID, this will sound very familiar. They violate freedom of expression, but then they say, we're doing our own Section 1 charter review. So Section 1 of the charter, you guys know this, but maybe some people don't. This is where a court or a tribunal can look at a charter violation, decide whether or not what is being done is a reasonable limit on the freedom. That is, whether or not this can be upheld. And of course, people who live through COVID, we saw this all the time, right? But now what the CRTC says, we're going to review our own decision, and we've decided that our violation of your religious freedom is justified under the charter. So they do their own Section 1 analysis.
We've investigated ourselves, and
yes,
there's no wrongdoing.
Yep, totally violates every concept of the rule of law, right? And of course, this is not they're not fair. They're not impartial. Now they're also violating not only a freedom of religious expression. They're violating what's called Section 7, right to life, liberty, and security of a person, because that includes procedural fairness. That includes the right to a fair hearing. That includes a right to impartiality. That includes like rights of appeal. Okay, that includes rights of disclosure. Things that over time we developed and we understand in Canada are very, very important to people if they're going to get a fair hearing and if their legal rights are going to be respected. So what they do is they not only do they shut down a contract, not only do they ensure that they're going to kill Christian broadcasting in Canada, but they have the godlike power to review their own decisions. And they tell you, listen, we're right and you're wrong. Don't worry, you don't bother appealing. And they actually tell them that. They almost sneer at them in the wording. They're saying, your avenues of appeal are very, very narrow.
You're welcome to appeal, but it's not going to go good for you, basically.
Sure, because what's happened is the government of Canada, the federal government, has changed all the rules to destroy all the procedural protections. And again, coming back to Bruce Pardy, he likes to say, and I like this, what he says is, what Canadians think the law is something very different than what it actually is. And the truth hits everybody who finds himself in a situation like the Huntsburgers, where they think they have the right to go buy a radio station. They think they have the freedom of expression to operate it as a Christian broadcaster. They respect diversity. They have many different people from many different races and faiths working in their organization. Their main producer is a woman. So they respect diversity, a diversity of thought and diversity of individuals and all of that. But they just want to be Christian broadcasters. But they were under the delusion that they could do this. And they find out that in Canada, actually, you can't, because the state controls everything. And so this is very shocking. It should be shocking not only to Christians, but really to everybody else who's watching this, because it's only a matter of time until this hits absolutely every one of us. If they can control the airwaves, they're going to control everything else. And really what they want to do and what they are doing is they're trying to control all of the ideas, all the discussions. And so, talking about this guy over in England who made these posts about LGBTQ. Well, now what the government in Great Britain has done is they've decided that they now control X. Now that is not a platform where people can share ideas and debate. That now is an expression of what your ideas are, your public ideas are, and if they're offensive to the state, then you're going to be arrested and jailed. And so, I think it's a very alarming story, and I'm grateful that you've had me on to talk about it.
One of the things I was reading about Bill C-8 today. Are you familiar with it?
Yes, very shocking.
You need to come back. I want to have you back on to do, because we do a lot of deep dives. We're a lot smarter than we look, so we like to go through and read full bills and just go through them. But I'd like to have you back on with Bill C-8, because I was reading about it earlier. And
briefly, what's the context? Like, what's the summary?
It's about ruling telecommunication services.
Okay.
And telecommunication services today is everything that's attached to that. And I could see the radio station that the reason I'm bringing it up is I will sit down and read the bill, read the whole thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if the CRTC's decision to deny a Christian show will fall under Bill C-8. It's just going to be put black on white as a power that they have. Because right now, because they control themselves, they can manage themselves. Obviously, they're capable of doing it. But I'd be curious to see if we can do a deep dive and see if that's what's coming, because this is what my understanding of Bill C-8 is. But the
I think
thing
you're bang on. I think you're right on the money.
They'll make sure that there's an official reason. They'll never say it's because it's a Christian radio station, right? They'll point to some law that they've put into place so that they can use that to deny these kind of stations.
It's just to have the power. Yeah. All they want is to have the power to do it. It's just that unlike 99% of people, I'm a sales engineer by trade. I lost my career over the vaccine, but for more than 20 years, that's what I did. I established some of the biggest networks in North America And I
Really?
was, yeah, and I sold those services to some of the biggest entities, from government to private entities. So I
Mm,
designed the type of network that they're going to go after, or they're going to
yeah.
try to build in order to control people. So I know that I can read Bill C8 and understand what they're talking about, because that's what I used to do, as in
Right.
the building of those networks. So I'll be curious to have you back on
Yeah.
to speak about it. But
Yeah.
one of the things I wanted to bring up, because I had the idea when we were talking last week on Jason Levine's podcast, and I wanted you to kind of give your opinion on what I said last week. What I basically said is two things, right? They're not doing that with Muslim broadcasting, because in
Well, that was
Montreal,
one
where
of
I
my
am right
that was
now,
one of my questions.
Yeah.
turned on
Yeah.
the radio, half of the stuff is not in French nor in English. So I know
Yeah.
they're not talking about DEI. They're not being pushed to do that. But the
Mhm.
thing I wanted to bring up with you is I'm a strong believer in protesting the government and standing up in ways that are not violent.
Right.
And one of the things that I know is I used to set up massive wireless antennas, and you need license from the government in order for your signal not to interfere with other people's signals.
Right.
But the license is not magic. You don't need the license to run the equipment. You can configure the equipment to use whatever frequency you want, license or not. So
Yeah.
my idea last week is like, screw this noise. We should just start putting FM radios as pirated FM signal, basically, and just, okay, your move, government. Because if you're not going to respect the charter, why should I respect you that is not respecting the charter?
Yeah.
How long until the jackboots come through the door when that happens? Because
Yeah, but
they
it's
will.
yeah,
I'm
but
not.
that's what you want.
Yeah, I'm not even saying that's,
I'm a content creator by heart. There's a good reason why I build the platform that I have, and I make a shit ton of views every month, every day. It's because I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna stuff a camera in your face and I'll just record. What are they gonna do?
Oh yeah, imagine if they booted you around right now and threw you on the ground. This stream would go viral.
Yeah.
I'd be laughing my ass off.
But
Get 'em, boys.
oh no, but it would be funny because I wouldn't fight back. I want to do it.
No. Yeah.
Just do it.
I know
We'll
what you mean.
record it.
I know what you mean. I know what you
But
mean.
Leighton, that's a question for you. What do you think of a Yahoo like me saying we should just pirate DFM? They don't want to give us the license because they're doing something that goes against the charter.
What's
That's
the plausibility of that as an act of protest?
Well, as a practicing lawyer who's still licensed, I cannot counsel.
Of course,
and I'm in Alberta, where a friend of mine, John Carpe, disbarred. Okay, I cannot counsel anyone to break the law. However, there is a reality here that I think you're onto, Nico, and that is that human beings are very ingenious. And they will find ways. Historically, we know that we will find ways to deal with unjust laws. And I think that there's a reality here. And what's really concerning, what is very, very concerning, is to see this government. I'm talking about the federal government, but there's other governments in Canada as well, doubling down on this stuff, almost wanting to stoke incitement of violence. And right now, if you look at what's going on in Australia, you look at what's going on in Great Britain. I read a story, I don't know if this is true, but I understand that the Starmer government has put out a notice to hospitals in Great Britain to expect an influx of people injured in riots and such. Now, this is a very alarming situation. And I know you're talking about nonviolence.
That's why I'm talking about nonviolence. I don't want to play into their hand.
No, absolutely. And I think that that is the way. I hope if Christians are going to make a decision not to follow the law, I pray that they will do it through nonviolent means, because, of course, as you know, as a Christian, we cannot do things through violence. Now, there are limits to that too. I mean, we all know about the Crusades. If we are faced with violence and we have to use violence to defend ourselves, that is scriptural. That is something that we can do. But I'm hoping that ingenious people like yourselves are going to find ways around these rules, because what we know is that the CRTC and through other means, they're going to try and choke Christianity and through it freedom of information and free exchange of ideas. They're going to try and choke that through any means possible. But I'm very, very concerned that this government is really, I see them trying to incite violence. And I'm not sure, the thing that I struggle with is I'm not sure why they're doing it. But it seems to me, it seems pretty obvious that they are doing it. Do you disagree with that?
So no, actually, I mean, as I'm listening to talk, I mean, I've got a couple questions I'll ask, but to the question you just asked, I mean, no. So a little bit of background context. I'm not a Christian. I'm an atheist, but I am.
There's a cure for that too. His name is Jesus Christ.
Yes, yeah, I know. But I am offended at what I see when I see certain groups in society. Anytime I see a group being treated unjustly, and right now you're correct. It seems like it's Christians who are being given the shit end of the stick in just about every. So I mean, that offends me. That offends my sense of justice. And just basic fairness. And in a diverse society like we live in, you can't have that. You have to apply the rules to everyone equally. And that's not, that shouldn't be a crazy ask. That should be just a bedrock principle. But to what you said, yeah, I mean, it does occur to me that all of these Western countries are failing in the exact same way at the exact same time. Like why in 2020 did every single Western country's immigration level go up through the roof? Like, you know, in lockstep, and none of them made this a campaign. This is not something that had any public buy-in. It just happened in every single, like it happened in America, it happened in UK, it happened in Australia, it happened in Canada. And that's just one example. In a lot of ways, like this sort of woke takeover seems to be happening in every Western country to varying degrees. I think America sort of put at least the brakes on it for now with Trump's election there. But it occurs to me that it can't just be a coincidence. There does have to be some string pulling behind the scenes, and that's not. And I am not a conspiracy theorist at all, but I am an observer of the things that are going around. I notice things, and so I think, you know, to your point, it is a coordinated effort. It has to be. And I don't know the end game either. That's I can't, like, one of the big debates me and Nico have, and this kind of goes back to what you had said about old school liberals, where we often might maybe we agree on the problem, we might have different we disagree on how to solve them or whatnot, but that's a productive debate, right? It seems like today now no one agrees with anyone even on what the problems are.
We can't debate at all.
No, exactly. And one of the things that we'll often discuss is, okay, we agree things are going to shit. Things are bad. Now, Nico he's more conspiracy minded than I am. He thinks it's by design. I just can't. I find it really hard to accept that our leaders are intentionally destroying the country. And yet I don't have any, you know, I ask myself this question. So why are they doing this?
Well, let me ask you this, Rob. I don't know if you saw.
Let me answer your question first, though. Let me answer your question, because, you know, one of the things that I say all the time is that there's a spiritual war going on, and like it or not, you're involved. That to me is, there's an end game, and the end game is going to get a lot worse than it is right now. And it needs, if you follow the Bible, if you're a Christian, we all know that it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. A lot worse before it gets better. And this is all part of the equation. What's going on right now is all part of it. It's just, it has to happen. It has to get worse before it gets better. But that's why faith is so important. I don't understand how that's why I can still have a smile on my face and enjoy life, because I have faith that this is all happening for a good reason. And at the end of the day, what control do I have outside? You know, one of my Christian buddies in Alabama, before I left about 6 months ago, he told me something that blew my mind. He's like, Nico, and he's talking to me as a content creator and as a Christian. He's like, Nico, your job is not to prevent the Titanic from sinking. Your job is to putting as many people as possible on lifeboats. I talk about it. I'm gonna get emotional, but I started crying when he said that. He completely changed the way I see my role as somebody that stands up to.
You know, there's a story like that in the Bible, as you know, Nico, about St. Paul, where they couldn't save the ship, but they could save the people on it. Remember that?
They threw Paul overboard.
No, that was Jonah. Hey, Rob, I got a question for you though. Did you hear or read about what Christopher Hitchens, a very noteworthy atheist, brilliant guy, he was saying that he subscribes to something called cultural Christianity, where he says he's an atheist. He doesn't accept Christ or doesn't abide by any religion, although we can argue about whether or not atheism is a religion. It's certainly a belief system, in my respectful opinion. However, he says that he wants to live in a culturally Christian society.
Yeah.
And he had very specific reasons for saying that. Do you agree with him about that? Do you want to live in a culturally Christian society? Because that would that would answer the question about why Christianity is so much under attack, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because I think Judeo-Christian values are, it's clearly what the West is founded on. And I don't even, I guess, I mean like the secular version of them, not even like the belief in Jesus Christ as your personal savior. I mean more like the majority of the 10 Commandments are not really over.
Like the golden rule versus the Lord's second commandment, which is love your neighbor.
Exactly.
That's kind of what
these are the things that create a high trust society. That is why the West has thrived. And when I say I'm an atheist, like I grew up quite religious. I grew up in a very religious Pentecostal family, and I was a believer myself until 18. So I'm very familiar with it. Most of my reasons for being an atheist is probably, a lot of the hypocrisy I saw growing up in the church really turned me off. I think in at least my church. So it's not like I'm ignorant to it. And of course, I growing up, I met many, really, really, really great and decent people who are Christians. But just as a value,
I know a lot of really great atheists too.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so I even though I'm not a Christian, I have a lot of respect for the value system for the people. And like I said, it offends my sense of fairness when you have the screws put to one identity group. And the fact that it's the identity group that, one thing about woke leftism seems to be a hatred of self-hatred. Everything to do with the West, they seem to hate. And that means Christianity. They love all the other religions. They hate Christianity, right? Yeah. They hate, they would never phrase it this way, but it seems like they hate white people. They hate everything that's you associate with the West. And even things that we all thought like free speech, which is, according to most people, should be a bedrock liberal value. Is clearly right. It's not any right now. It's not. It's the right wingers, the conservatives who are upholding that value. So I mean, I've been a political, like a liberal politically my whole life, but I'm more of that classical liberal vein. But I'm also kind of going through some sort of existential crisis over the last couple of years as I look around me and see like what the fuck is going on here.
Well, I respect your free will to be an atheist, but I'm still going to pray for you, brother.
Well, I appreciate that. I do. I do. And again, since I grew up in the church, I understand. I've never understood people who find that offensive. I mean, all someone is saying is they're going to think about you and wish good things for you. And if I'm wrong and your prayers work, then I'll take them.
All right, awesome.
Yeah, I'll take them. Beggars can't be choosers.
I wanted to ask you something, Leighton, because you brought it up, and we're going to have him on the show tomorrow. We are going to be speaking with John Carpe tomorrow. It's unrelated to what happened yesterday. Like we've had him 4 or 5 times up to now. We've done a lot of Bill deep dive with him.
I've had him on my show a couple of times too. Yeah, he's
brilliant guy, brilliant guy, and I know you're friends with him. You mentioned it.
Yeah.
Do you think it's coincidental that he got disbarred the same day as he released his new report on the excessive death?
Well, these are good questions. What we do know is that John Carpe and the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms stood up to the state, particularly during COVID, during a time when really no one else did. And I owe a great debt of gratitude to John Carpe because he reached out to me. I went through a cancel culture experience in 2020. He was one of the few people who reached out to me and offered help. And not only that, he gave me the opportunity to work on some of the most rewarding legal cases of my entire career. I got to do the lockdown case in Alberta, which is the Ingram case, which we won. I got to represent pastors like Pastor James Coates and Timothy Stevens, who were imprisoned and were willing to do that for their great men of faith. And I have a lot of respect and regard for John Carpe, and it saddens me what has happened to him. I think that what we are seeing in Canada right now, it's impossible not to see that there is persecution of political dissidents. And whatever John Carpe did, and I don't know all the details of it, but the Law Society of Alberta has a certain view of it. Certainly, Manitoba Law Society has a version of it. At some point, we have to accept the reality that, Tamara Leach and Chris Barber and others, these people are political dissidents, and they are being treated in a way that is punitive. And I happen to know because I at one time I was an arbitrator. I was part of the disciplinary process of the Law Society before they kicked me off during COVID. And I know of lawyers who've done much more serious things than John Carpe, who have not received the most severe punishment that the Law Society has available. So, and again, I don't know all the details, so I have to tread carefully here. But I'm not offended by the idea of having John Carpe as a member of the Law Society of Alberta whatsoever, because I know him. I know what kind of man he is. But I think when we see people like John Carpe, suffering this type of punitive treatment, I think it's a sign of the times, and we have to be aware that this is going on. I don't know if there's a connection, but I know that John Carpe is has incredible courage, and he's never shied away from any sort of controversial issue, and I expect he's going to go on, and I pray that he's going to continue to be the voice that he has been in Canada, and that he'll continue to lead the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms in the same way that he has. Now, he did make a mistake in what he did in Manitoba. He acknowledged it, as was my understanding. There was a guilty plea to an offense. I understand there was a plea deal that was done. And unfortunately, that wasn't enough for the Law Society of Alberta. They felt that it was necessary in order to maintain the reputation of the profession to have him not continue to be a lawyer, and that's the ruling that they made. As a lawyer, I have to respect that, because that's the operation of the procedure that's part of our law. However, I can also say I don't like the decision, and I wish it were different. But I'm glad that you're going to have him on the program, and I'm praying for John. I sent him a note when I saw the notice, and I'm praying for him and his family, and I just hope that he's going to continue to do all the great work that he has been doing over the past several years.
Well, and look at the Tamara Lynch. Well, it was in the news not long ago. She was looking at 7 or 8 years for what she did. Meanwhile, you've got, I don't know if you're familiar with this case, but we covered it. There's an Indian migrant who was arrested for trying to buy sex from a 15-year-old. He thought it was a sting. And the judge said, I'm going to give you a lesser sentence because we don't want to affect your immigration status. So it's this sort of two-tier justice system, and the system will collapse if that's how, you can't do that. You can't treat different groups, identity groups differently. And especially, and it's even more bizarre when it's the ones you're treating differently are the ones that are like your citizens, the people from here, and you're prioritizing everyone else. It is crazy. I did have sorry, go ahead, Leighton.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I was just going to say I did want to ask a question before I forget about what you were talking about at the beginning of the show. And I think I already know the answers, but I just want to hear for sure. So this license was denied to the Christian broadcaster because they refused to. It wasn't officially because they were Christians, because they didn't go. They didn't agree to go for the DEI stuff. Now, if there was an LGBTQ radio station, would they have to devote a certain amount of their programming to Christianity?
No.
Interesting. Very interesting. I mean,
that's not part of their policy. Isn't part of their policy. So that sort of religious freedom is not respected in the same way. And of course, I mean, I know you might consider this a conspiracy theory, but it's pretty clear that the woke religion or the woke cult is a competitive religion.
I believe that.
Which sees Christianity as its competitor. It has to remove that from the public sphere. It has to remove all the things that we talked about, the cultural Christianity. has to remove all the vestiges too, in order for it to, and it's a jealous competitor, and that's the basis for its alignment. It's I'm going to call it an unholy alliance with Muslim, because Islam, again, historically is an 8th century warrior code, which has been in competition with Christianity and Judaism forever. And if you don't know that, then you need to actually read the Quran.
Study your history,
So that's the reality. So that's the reason why I think the woke people don't really understand. They should, because there's lots of evidence of it throughout the world, but they don't really understand what living under Islam would be like in Canada.
It's wild, right? Because you go ahead, Nico, and then I'll ask my question.
What I was going to say is that wokeism is the new version of Marxism.
Yes.
What's the first thing that Marxists do? They disconnect people from God, replace God by themselves, and then you start praying to yourself. You start putting yourself above,
which is satanic, right? Yeah.
100%. But that is what wokeism is all about.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of woke people make fun of me because I believe that a guy 2000 years ago died for my sin and resurrected. And I always have the same answer to them. It's easier. It takes more faith for me to believe that a woman can have a dick than Jesus Christ died for my sin. All I'm going to say, but to me, it's not surprising what we're seeing. It's not a competition, and it's not a real competition at the end of the day. But I saw a video I should have saved. It was a pastor that was explaining that the only reason that Christianity is always attacked by every other religion is because it is the only one that is true. Because Satan will never attack a religion that is not a real competition.
Right.
Well,
I just love that video. The way he said it, you have to believe what we believe in order to believe that. But the way he explained it, I'm like, bro, because it's being attacked however you are. And I'm happy that Rob is a liberal, as an atheist, but he grew up in the church, which complete opposite. I grew up as an atheist. I became Christian about 4 years ago. So completely different path. Yet I'm happy to be able to have just a common sense liberal that understands that we are under attack left, right, and center.
Oh yeah. You just have
but that is, but if you read the Bible, you're supposed to expect it from the get-go. If you follow Christ, you're going to be targeted for your belief, and you're supposed to take it, because that's what being a Christian is.
Well, I mean, that's what Jesus does say, right? Basically, it is almost, persecution is to be expected. I like your sort of comparison there, Leighton, to wokeism as new religion, and I've thought similar. I've had similar thoughts myself. It seems almost in lockstep that you could almost chart the rise of what you could call wokeism with the secularization of society. It seems like we're actually more religious or spiritual than we had thought. And even though we became more secular and people turned from religion, we still had that desire for some religious belief. And that's why I think a lot of these people who became secular turned to this wokeism, and the problem is they don't realize it, though, right? They would scoff at the idea that these are religious beliefs. But if you actually go down the list of things that make it a religion, they've got all their chants, right? Trans women are women. They just say it again and again and again. They like religions back in the day, they treat the heretics the worst more than anyone else. If you were once a woke liberal and then you leave the flock, they save their most virulent attacks for those people.
You're an apostate. Yeah,
exactly right. There's so many comparisons in which it is religion.
Well, if you want proof, just look at how they react when it's criticized.
Right? Exactly.
That's the litmus test, right? Right.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
That's the litmus test. You cannot it cannot be tolerated. It's a really serious problem in our law schools. Our law schools are really the incubus for most of these terrible ideas, nearly all of them. Actually.
Academia in general, it seems to be.
But the law schools are particularly
really
bad. Oh yeah,
really.
Oh yeah. Critical race theory started in law schools you know, all of it, you know, social justice, all of it, all the wokeism. It started in law school. Radical feminism started in law schools, and of course, it's in our legal profession, and it's especially infected our judiciary, which is why our you know, a lot of the reasons why a lot of the things that we're seeing right now is we have activist judges. This is another conversation we could have, Nico, on your program. Is how activist judges are reshaping society. Did you know that the Supreme Court has never heard a COVID case? They've refused to hear even a single COVID case. This is the most significant event of the 21st century in Canada, and perhaps in the whole world. Now, in the United States, they've heard multiple COVID cases. In Canada, they continually refuse. They just did it again. One of the guys who was convicted of mischief over the convoy, the Supreme Court simply won't hear the case. Unbelievable, but it's a sign of the times. And of course, it's a really serious problem because this wokeism has infected all of our major institutions, including the church.
Have you ever seen the movie Devil's Advocate?
Yes. Yeah.
He kind of hints, like Al Pacino kind of hints at
he
it,
does.
that if you want to control the world, understand the law.
Yeah.
So
That scene on this, when you mentioned that movie, I can't forget that scene on the subway. You might know the one I'm talking about.
Yep.
He tells the guy,
the Mexican guy, you should go back home because your neighbor is having fun with your wife right now. Yeah. But
only Al Pacino could pull off that scene.
But it's very interesting when I'm a big movie buff, but I like to look at it from a psychology perspective. Law makes sense to me. It makes 100% sense that's where it started, because if you control law, controlling academia afterwards is easy.
You can change laws through if you control the judiciary, sort of like by the back door, sort of under the table, right? Because you don't need to actually change laws. You can just change how they're interpreted, because that is the role of the judiciary. And that doesn't make the news like a law does, right? Like when a big law gets passed, that's in the news. But when a judge makes when a judge makes a decision that adds to the jurisprudence of an issue, I mean, sometimes, you know, we do hear it, but for every one story we hear, there's probably 100 that we have not.
Well, I'll give you an example. There's an example that happened in BC where parts of the city of Richmond are basically going to be given away to Indian tribes. But there was a case in Austria recently where two guys were fighting over a debt. The one guy owed the other money, and they decided to have their case decided by an arbitrator who would apply Sharia law. And the one guy didn't like the decision, so he actually took it before an Austrian court, a judge in Austria, and the judge in the Austrian court applied and adopted the reasoning of the Sharia arbitrator. And this is really significant, because what that does is that it adopts the Sharia law into Austrian law. And this didn't happen in Austrian parliament. This wasn't done by their political leaders. This is how judges can create law and bring Sharia law into Austrian law. Now, to their credit, the Austrian government is resisting this, but that process is how I predict judges are going to try to do the same thing in Canada. They're already doing it in parts of Europe where Sharia law is being brought online mainstream. And it's something that is very, very dangerous for our institutions here in Canada.
How much time do you have?
How much time do you want?
Well, it's because you're bringing up a subject that I have a lot of people send me videos, so just followers that send me stuff, and I got two today that we talk about the UK all the time, and we talk about the Muslim problematic, because and this is not about being a Christian, this is not about him being a liberal, it's just I was just on the podcast with David Creighton, and this is one of the places that him and I
was listening to that conversation.
But this is one of the places that him and I disagree with. I see the Muslim faith as an invader. I see them as what they do is a show of force.
Yep.
And you're just bringing up something. I wanted to show those videos, but since you won't stop talking about it, I'm just going to bring it up. And I'm not saying that like as a bad thing. Thank you for taking it as
a great conversation. I'm enjoying this a lot.
And so let me bring that up because those are two videos that were sent to me from two different followers. They're about what's going on. The first is how much I call the video the ballot. It's the ballot or the bullet because they keep on referring to it in the video.
Right.
So I want to show this, and then I want to show there's a professor of war that specializes at war or in historical war that declared that the UK is headed for a civil war. The video is a bit longer, but it's absolutely brilliantly made. But I wanted to show you those two videos. I wanted to show everybody because I wanted to talk about it. But do you want to be part of these analysis? Because we do a lot of that here, right? We go about what's trending and we talk about it. So if you're interested, I'd love to keep you on and we can go through those videos and get your opinions on them.
Yeah, I'd like to hear your takes on them.
Sure.
So here's the video that I call the ballot or the bullet. This is how Muslims will take over.
Now it's getting through Congress. So before it was by the sword. Now it's getting themselves into parliament and then making laws that act as the sword, the Islamophobia law in Canada.
And you're seeing a ton more Islamic politicians these days.
I find that there are only two things which are open to our movements. Ballot or bullet, nothing in between.
I used to say that democracy is haram. Now I say participation in democracy is our jihad. That's our jihad. We're going to fight not through the bullets, but the ballot.
Going to the ballot and voting is now an obligatory action, fard ayn. And it is a jihad that is now needs to be done because this is our modern jihad. You can elect a person who wants the Sharia.
Because in the United States, what we do know is that in the past election, just this last election, there have been over 800 Muslim candidates running for office.
We may end up with about 50 members of Congress in the next 6 years. That's really the essence of dismantling the system of injustice, is to replace it with the people who represent the Prophet ﷺ.
Now it's getting through Congress.
What do you think?
Yeah, you go first, Leighton.
Well, I think when you're talking about the people who want to bring Sharia law and have Sharia law as the guiding source of law in Canada, there's no question that this is their goal. What I'm not sure of is whether the majority of people who are Islamic faith in Canada want this. I can tell you, for example, I have a really great guy who works in my law office who's from Jordan. He's a lawyer and he's Muslim. And he tells me that, a lot of the people who immigrated to places like Canada, the United States, actually wanted to get away from Sharia law. They were fleeing that. They were fleeing the oppression of it. And one of the concerns that he expressed to me is, when you have people who are very militant in terms of this, let's call it the new caliphate, this idea that Sharia must take over, that they start to bully the people who have come over here and who are peaceful, who have accepted Western values, who can live. And so Mr. Creighton, he was talking about it when he was talking about the Muslim people who can live in peace with Canadians of other faiths. He's right. There are people like that, but the problem is the militant Muslims will not tolerate those people. They're
and we're letting them in
as apostates. That's right. So we're actually doing a great disservice to the many good Muslim people who have come to Canada and contributed. They're good citizens. They've started businesses and families and educated themselves, become doctors and engineers and, heaven forbid, lawyers. And so they're good, solid people who've adopted Western values. We all know people like this. And so one of the real dangers of allowing this mass immigration is it is permitting a lot of harm to come into our societies. Now, there are mathematical parts of this where the numbers simply don't lie, and that is, part of Sharia law is it has a rape culture aspect to it. Mm-hmm. And here I'm going to quote you. This is from an Islamic scholar. He said this. He says a Muslim man has the right to have 4 wives and an unlimited number of sex slaves, and the slaves must give themselves to their Muslim masters. Sex slaves are non-Muslim women. Now, that is totally irreconcilable and offensive to Western values. Certainly if you're a Christian, but Western values, we don't accept that. We don't accept that treatment of women. We have a very different idea of how families are structured. All of that. Sharia law is totally incompatible with Western society. And so there's no doubt, Nico, that there is going to be conflict. And if we understand history, there were these things called the Crusades. We know that at some point, this is going to become militant. It's simply, where it's going right now, it's simply unavoidable. Is there a way to curb this and to stop this? Yes. But what's concerning is, the governments in places like Canada, Australia, and Great Britain are not interested in doing anything to curb this tide.
No.
And so that's,
They're jailing people who are complaining about it.
Right. But it's encouraging to see, for example, the people of Australia who are coming out. I saw a notice today that on September the 13th, there's going to be some sort of event in Canada, which is calling for mass deportations. Now, I don't know if that's the solution, but I know we've got really serious problems in our country caused by mass immigration. And it requires action and swift action. And this government is not doing anything about it. In fact, I believe I saw on your X page, Nico, today, our prime minister being quoted as saying, well, as he goes around the country, all these business owners just say, that they want more temporary foreign workers. I don't know any business people who are saying that, and I don't know who. I don't think that our prime minister is talking to rank and file business people. That's not his scene. Right?
No.
But you put your finger on a serious problem because it impacts so many other issues. We're talking about it impacts housing, it impacts the economy, the unemployment rate. It impacts safety in our homes, healthcare. All of it is putting tremendous strains on all of our institutions, and we simply cannot continue to have this influx of immigrants. In fact, the per capita rate for Canada is twice what it is in Great Britain. Think about that for a second. It's just incredible. We cannot handle this number of people coming in, especially when we know that they do have many of them, not all of them. We don't want to paint them with the same brush, but there are these political agendas that are totally antithetical and, in fact, oppositional to the maintenance of the Canadian nation, the Canadian state. They're talking about taking over completely using "quote unquote" democratic means. But really, there's no question. Many of these Islamic leaders, radical Islamic leaders, talk about this quite openly, and so it is something that we ought to be very, very concerned about. And I think it's time that some type of action needs to be taken to prevent what is a coming catastrophe. We can all see this coming, we've got to do something to prevent that, because a civil war based upon drawn along religious lines, well, I mean, if you're a student of history, you know how awful that can be.
Nico, you want to go?
Yeah, there's a question that I'm going to develop because it kind of aligns with what I was going to ask you. But question for Leighton: did your friend have any suggestion as a solution? And unfortunately, I ran out of time with David Creighton earlier because this is definitely something we disagree on. But one of the reasons why I'm so hated in Canada is because I call out conservatives. As a small C conservative, my job is not to call out the liberals. My job is to call out weak leaders like Pierre Poilievre. That's supposed to be my representation.
Well, those guys aren't conservatives, not to my understanding. They aren't conservatives.
No, they wear the name, but they're not. So if my job as a small C conservative is to call out the big C conservative, if my job as a Christian is to call out the leadership in Christianity, which I do all the time, shouldn't it be the job of Muslims like your friends to call out those extremists that they don't align with? Because I don't think that your friend, if he has any type of common sense, can say that what's going on in Europe is great. What's going on here in Canada is great. So shouldn't he be the first person to talk against what they're doing if he wants to help us save Western culture.
Yeah. No, this is a good point. But you know, the risk of calling people cowards, I mean, there is a fear factor here.
Yep.
It is dangerous. You know, we all know there are actual stories of people being killed for speaking out. So there is a lot of danger there, and of course, they also risk being ostracized within their own communities and their own
That's
families.
it, right? The liberals have created this thing where any criticism of immigration policy is automatically you're just racist, right? And of course, it's bad faith. But man,
we're not even talking. But we're not talking about immigration here. We're talking about religious beliefs. If Christians were starting to preach stuff that is not in the Bible, or not preach what's in the Bible, I would call them out, and I have called them out, and there's a good reason why. Most pastors in the US completely refused to record content with me because they knew I would call them out the way that I talk to them. But it is still on Muslims to call out those extremists, to say that we are not the same, and I don't see it happening.
But they won't
I
do
don't
it.
see it
No.
happening anywhere.
Not
And
publicly.
I don't like that coward shit. It drives me absolutely nuts. I lost everything over a fucking job, and I would do it again tomorrow because this is what I'm supposed to do as a Christian, to stand up for what is right. So why don't they do it? And I don't want to hear that coward bullshit, because if Muslims are not going to hold themselves accountable, they should be deported. What other answers am I supposed to have? Right? Like, is there something I'm missing here? If you cannot police your own, what do I have to do to make this country not necessarily Christian again, but Western again?
Decent.
I need to remove the people that don't fit.
I mean, did he have any solutions, Leighton, or was it more of just kind of complaining?
Well, we didn't get that deep into the conversation. The conversations I have with him, for example, we have conversations about what's going on in Palestine, and I find these conversations with him very instructive. Actually, I learn a lot from hearing a different perspective.
Sure.
And so I try to keep the lines of communication open with him because I want to learn from him. I want to get his perspective. So we didn't get that far to talk about the solutions, but I have the impression, and I think this is true, that people like him. Of course, obviously, he's born and raised in Canada. His parents are from Jordan, and he's done very well. He's a lawyer. They have a lot to lose, right, by the destruction of Canadian society the way it exists right now, because they you know, for his parents, they came here because they wanted to live, you know, as Westerners. Now they still follow their Islamic faith, and the structure of their family is Islamic, but I don't get the impression from him that, you know, they're tied into all this, you know, radical Islam. But the question that just begs the question, and that is there a line to be drawn within Islam? I mean, are there good, like, is Mr. Creighton right when he says, oh, you know, there's good Muslims and there's bad Muslims, and we need to understand the difference and all that stuff? Nico brings up a good point. I mean, if there are people who are of Islamic faith in Canada who don't support this stuff, there is a responsibility on them to speak up and say that. I quite agree with that.
So yeah, no, I agree too. Now, I think that there is a myth in the West about what you might call the moderate Muslim or moderate Muslims. I think by and large they are a myth. Not that moderate Muslims don't exist, but I think many in the West think that the majority are moderate and there's a few radicals, and they're basing it on their experience, because I suspect that up until 5 to 10 years ago, the majority of Muslims in the West were ones who were fleeing extreme Islam. And so there was a bit of confirmation bias. Most Muslims they met were moderate. But if you zoom out and take Muslim as a whole, it is not moderate. The average mainstream Muslim is what we would consider an extremist. The moderates probably make, I mean, who knows the numbers, but I suspect it probably make up something like 10 to 20% of all Muslims. And, you know, the ones that came here up until 5 to 10 years ago, I agree with you. I think they were probably fleeing that. The ones that are coming now for the last 5 to 10 years, they are a different kind. They're coming here on a mission. And it, you know, I brought this up a few weeks ago. It hasn't escaped me that at the exact same time you see a lot of these Islamist politicians being elected in the West, there's also no Islamic terrorist attacks going on. Like, remember, or, you know, between 2001 to 2015, they were everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
And now they're gone. They just disappeared. And we know that many of these attacks are directed by people back in the Islamic world. And it's, I mean, this is my conspiracy theory, but it's not that crazy that these guys said, okay, let's calm down on the attacks now, because they understand if they, you know, they say it in that video, ballot or the bullet. They did the bullet up until 2015. Once they decided to go ballot, they knew they had to cut back on the terrorist attacks, because yes, that would cause problems for them. But that's just a temporary pause, right? Like the one thing I guess you can say is a good thing is they're not shy about what they intend. There's hundreds of videos out there of Western Muslims. Some of them are clerics, some of them are imams, some of them are just regular Muslims who are saying, we're here, we're gonna implement Sharia law once we get enough numbers, and we have kids and you guys don't, so you're fucked. Like they're not hiding it. And what's insane to me is how it's the woke left that's primarily sort of pushing for this and allowing for that, whereas what Islam stands for is absolutely antithetical to everything that they're supposed to believe. How do you think women's rights is going to go if and when there's a takeover? How do they think LGBTQ? Like, there's some unholy alliance right now because the Muslims know that the left, the political left, are useful idiots right now for what they want to do. But as soon as they get those numbers, as soon as they get, like, if you look at Lebanon or whatnot, as soon as they get numbers big enough, that shit's going out the window.
I agree with you in part about the terrorism.
It's weird,
the terrorism,
it's weird.
But the terrorism has a different form now. That now the terrorism is in the form of violent crime. Violent crime has grown exponentially in all of the countries that have taken the Muslim refugees. And bear in mind, there are no Muslim countries anywhere in the world, and some of these are some of the richest countries in the world. There's not a single Muslim nation which accepts refugees.
No,
and I think it's because they're smarter than us. They understand that when you import that you do import violent crime, and these are numbers. The lies don't. The numbers speak for themselves. Every type of crime is on the rise, and of course, the small L liberals who have been in government, whether it's the Democrats in the U.S. or the Labour Party in Britain or the Liberal Party in Canada, this fits right into their plans because, of course, they're soft on crime and they encourage this destruction. In fact, this is how bad it is right now, and I'm not speaking out of school. One of the few times I can compliment the Mr. Legault in Quebec is he said no to the federal money. The Liberal Party of Canada, the Liberal government of Canada, is paying provinces, essentially bribing them to tell their judges to consider firstly and foremost the race of an offender when they sentence them. And several provinces have accepted this money, including Manitoba. Alberta did, although to Danielle Smith's credit, she suspended the agreement in December of last year. But now I ask you, how are we going to have a country where judges are upholding the law and they're imposing sentences that are going to create specific and general deterrence so that we can have a safe society when the federal government is essentially bribing the provinces to tell their judges, who are supposed to be fair and impartial, not to impose proper sentences on people based upon race. In other words, to have a differential treatment of people under the law,
so that
violates the rule of law.
White, you'll get a more severe punishment, which is against every single principle that most people think this country stands for.
Right. Race should be totally irrelevant. Consideration.
100%
it should be irrelevant. It should be just one of the biographical factors about an offender that a judge can consider. But of course, now what we have is a race-based system of justice. And if you know the story, of King Solomon in the Bible the two women fighting over the baby.
Yes,
it's a complete distortion of that story. It's an inversion of justice. Social justice is the opposite of justice. It's not justice at all. And unfortunately, our system of criminal justice is now being based upon social justice, which is to anybody who understands our system of justice is actually injustice.
Yeah.
And so the lines of this, what you're talking about, run very, very deep. And it's hard to know where to begin to attack these problems. But fundamentally, all of our institutions in Canada are under attack. People sense this, and I think this is part of the despair and the despondency and indeed the anger that many Canadians feel.
Do you think that conservatives have a role, a part of responsibility, if not a massive amount of responsibility, to take with what's going on right now? Because that's the reason why I started recording with David Creighton a few weeks ago, because both him and I agree that the Conservative Party is not a conservative, or not conservatives.
They're not.
And it's easy for us to blame 10 years of liberal policies and say that they're the reasons we're in the mess that we're in. But at the end of the day, it is Harper that opened the door to our open border policies were done under Harper. It's just that they never implemented them to be used that way. At least that's what I believe.
Yeah.
But Trudeau came in and just took advantage of it.
Yeah.
But I don't see enough conservatives, as I don't see any of them, it seems like, out there. It seems like I'm alone fighting this fight and being called from all angles, being called names from all angles. But do you think that conservatives small c need to do exactly like I was saying that your friend that's a Muslim should do, and call out our conservative big C party, because they've let it happen? They haven't done shit in 10 years. They've lost 4 fucking elections in a row, and they keep on going more and more left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think it depends on what you understand what conservatism is. And if you are, my understanding of conservatism is fundamentally at core our Judeo-Christian values and indeed acceptance of Christianity. And you know, the quote unquote Conservative Party of Canada is not conservative at all. In fact, and I would put it this way, Nico. If I were to ask you, and we were to ask most people what the Liberal Party of Canada stands for, they could probably tell me, right? And it'd be a coherent explanation. If I asked the same question about Pierre Poilievre and his party, what would the answer be? What do they stand for? And they don't understand. This is why they keep losing. This is why they are now the Washington Generals of Paul. Remember that team used to play the Harlem Globetrotters?
The Harlem Globetrotters.
Get their asses whooped. That's who and they are going to lose forever and ever and ever until they figure out that they've got to have a coherent policy, something that Canadians can identify and sign on to, instead of trying to be all things to all people. They'll say anything or do anything just because, you know, they want to get elected. Now they're talking about how they're rising in the polls. Big hairy deal. You know, we see this last year.
It's Kearney that's following what's really happening.
Sure.
It's probably
of course he is, because he's doing exactly what we could have expected he was going to do. He won the election, and now he's coming forward with his unpopular, policies. But in the meanwhile, you know, what alternative is there for Canada? I'm waiting. I'm hoping for somebody like Javier Milei to come out of Montreal or somewhere, because if there was somebody like that in Canada, that's who I would start marching behind. There are no political leaders in Canada right now, at least not in the major parties, if you can call them major, that I could or would support, because either they have the wrong values or values that I find detestable, or they have no values at all. And that's how I would describe the CPC. They have a party without values. They really are a valueless party. They're purely pragmatically political. At least the Liberals have values. They're the wrong values.
The wrong
to
ones.
Me, they're fundamentally evil, their values. But at least they have values. And I mean, if you're the CPC, how are you going to stand up to that? You can't if you don't have any values. You know, and they should take a note from what happened in the U.S. This is how the Republicans won. They won because of MAGA. I mean, the Republican Party basically got in the slipstream of MAGA, but MAGA is fundamentally. I can tell you, I was at a Trump rally in Henderson, Nevada last November. I was in a circle of over 200 people holding hands and praying to God that Donald Trump would win the election. Anybody who thinks that MAGA is just a political movement do not understand it at all. And when we can get a movement like that in Canada, that is when things are really, really going to change. I'm not saying it's going to be just like MAGA. I'm saying it's going to be something that's principled, something that speaks to our core values, something that it's, you know, that we can get behind. We can march in that parade. And we can see a vision for our country that's much better than what it is right now. That's the problem. I mean, our country is listless because none of our leaders have a coherent vision that most Canadians can get behind. That's a sort of a Coles Notes version, but that's kind of at core what's wrong with Canada right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, one of the things.
How would it be possible if all our leaders are not regular people? Because the only solution that I come back to every day is it's going to take a knucklehead like me to show up and fuck shit up, do what Jesus did in the temple and start fucking flipping tables.
I agree. Yeah.
I mean, what was
Trump came from outside the process, didn't he?
Well, that's what Trump
came from outside the process, right?
Yeah. Oh, the Republicans absolutely.
But he's not a regular. But he's not a regular person.
No, he's a billionaire. That's true.
Yeah,
like they call him the blue collar billionaire, but he ain't fucking.
He's got blue collar sensibilities, I think.
Yeah,
but that's all fake. He doesn't understand what it is to be a blue collar.
Yeah.
But it's the same way. Would you agree that's why Pierre Poilievre doesn't resonate with most people is because he's fake as shit, and he's never been somebody from the people either. He's been a career politician for more than 20 years now.
Yeah.
Like I listened to him speak and I'm like, bro, you make like 250 grand a year doing nothing, working what? You work 25 days since December 18th last year because Parliament has been closed the whole time. So what'd you do? You didn't do shit for all this time. And do you honestly feel that? Yeah, but forget that part. Just the fact that he's not a commoner, he's not a regular person, he's not somebody that understands what it is to eat rice and beans because they can't afford to do anything. He doesn't understand what it is to be taxed at 42% of your salary and try to still provide for your family while the government's leaving with half your fucking paycheck.
Yeah. My issue with him is I just don't know what his values are.
Well,
he doesn't talk about them. He never mentions God. He doesn't pray in public the way, you know, JD Vance and Donald Trump do. We don't. God has been banished from the public square. There are no politicians in Canada who talk about that, and so for me, that's a huge problem. I know that's not a problem for atheists like Rob, but for me, that's a huge problem. We don't have a voice, so when I look to Pierre Poilievre, I see him as really just a variation on the theme. I think that he could be interchanged with Mr. Carney, and he could very easily lead the Liberal Party.
Sure.
Honestly,
Carney could probably lead the Conservative Party too.
Sure, absolutely. They're interchangeable because you cannot distinguish between them in terms of what their fundamental values are, and you have the same problem in Great Britain with the Conservative Party and the Labour Party. The very same problem. You know, and people there, they talk about the uniparty there too, just like in Canada. So.
Well, and now reform over there seems like it might actually has some legitimacy and is rising the polls. They like
is that Farage?
Yeah, Farage and reform.
He actually got he got an audience with Trump. I don't know if you read that. But,
no, I didn't. But they're a legitimate party in the way that Canada nor America has like an outsider renegade party. But on this note, that's an interesting segue. Just speaking of sort of these renegade parties, and I noticed someone in the comments just brought it up. What do you think about this thing that's going on with the AfD, which is the German political party? They've had 7 of their leaders killed in the last 2 weeks. They've got election coming up. I mean, like I said, I'm not conspiracy minded, but that's pretty hard not to go there.
It's frightening what's going on in Germany. Because of course we know their history, the history of that country, and the radicalization of Germany should be a real concern to everybody.
Well, yeah, because it's just the radicals are on the good side now, right? The quote unquote good side, and so they don't see it. It's funny that the people that don't see that will call you a Nazi because you don't think that women can have a penis, you know what I mean, or you're a Christian, and so therefore you're a far right Nazi, and it's strange times that we're in.
Yeah, you know, the word racism was created by Leon Trotsky, and he used it to describe anybody who disagreed with him. Yeah. It was a word that was described to use to describe political dissidents. So
that doesn't surprise me at all. But wow, that's crazy. Sylvia says Rupert Lowe is the right dude in England, but he's alone. Yeah, he's I don't know too much about him, but I see him tweets from him that come across my feed, and he's saying some stuff that no other Western, because he's an elected official. I believe he's an MP right now. I don't know what his party is. I assume it's Reform, but he's saying stuff about like immigration and migrants and the trans issue that no Western politician is saying right now.
Well, I think we'd be very foolhardy to underestimate the English people, especially the Irish and the Scots. You know, if you understand history, but things can get very, very scary over there very quickly. But it looks like there's a real mobilization.
With the St. George's Cross thing, and I think in some ways that could be the start of what could hopefully be a Western civilization pushback against the destruction.
Wouldn't that be something to pray for? Well, I'll pray for it, Rob. You'll hope for it. I'll pray for it.
I'm down. Hey, if whatever works.
Hold on here. This is you guys are giving me the perfect segue for the other video I wanted to play. Because this was recorded, just so you guys know, this was posted 12 weeks ago, so about 3 months ago, give or take. But this is a history professor.
Leighton.
It seems that
about Starmer warning the hospitals.
Yeah, but it's more than that. It's the war, the upcoming war, because the Irish, and it's funny because they do mention the Irish. But just listen to this, and we'll take a few minutes afterwards to just discuss it.
Great Britain looks like a nation where life is functioning normally. Below the surface, however, lies a growing sense that the United Kingdom is coming apart at the seams. King's College London professor of war studies David Betts set off alarm bells this year by saying Britain is headed towards civil war, and he advised people living in its large cities to move before the violence starts.
Imagine Northern Ireland scale. Or Northern Ireland in intensity, but on a completely national scale. Attacks on public figures, judges, potentially politicians.
London Daily Telegraph columnist Tim Stanley told us he agrees with Betts that Britain is heading for open sectarian conflict, possibly war, and there's nothing we can do to stop it.
And his argument is this, that first of all, Britain displays many of the signs of being a failed state. Such as economic decline, total loss of trust in the police, and a fractious and increasingly extreme politics.
At the center of this unrest is a government multicultural experiment that has brought in large numbers of Muslims without requiring them to integrate. More continue to arrive daily. This is Britain's southern border, the English Channel, across from the coast of France, and it's as porous as the Rio Grande River. 2 weeks ago, 1,200 illegal migrants arrived in a single day.
When you have a country in decline and you add large numbers of new people into the mix, what you end up with is ethnic conflict over resources.
Experts fear all that might be needed to trigger a civil war is another terror attack. White working class anger exploded last summer when the son of a Rwandan immigrant stabbed 11 children and 2 adults at a dance studio. 3 girls died. Social media posts initially misidentified the killer as an illegal migrant, sparking the worst riots in 10 years. Only much later did police reveal the killer possessed an Al-Qaeda training manual. Right-wing and working-class British are also angry over what they claim is a 2-tier justice system that favors Muslims. Last week, this man was convicted of a crime for publicly burning a Quran in a political protest. A Muslim man with a knife who threatened to kill him faced no charges.
That's
Lucy
insane.
Connolly, a 41-year-old mother, is serving 31 months in prison for a tweet appearing to encourage violence against illegal migrants after the murders of those 3 girls in Southport. She got more jail time than some of the members of this Pakistani sex grooming gang, convicted for child prostitution and having sex with a minor. Add to this rising crime, Orwellian state censorship, and economic decline in many areas. Great Britain.
When there's a follower of mine that sent me that earlier and tell me that every single point that they touched,
it's right.
Not happening here, as we discussed basically everything they said in there, and you asked earlier why would they do it. This is how they implode martial law. This is how they take the last part of control that they can have. What again, movies to me are precursors. Movies are meant to indoctrinate people so they get used to an idea, and it's not surprising anymore when it happens. But what's the movie with the white mask that's in the UK?
V for Vendetta.
V for Vendetta.
Yeah.
Tell me, what did he say? One terrorist attack, V for Vendetta. It's a chemical one, and then an extremely Christian right-wing party takes over. Like, you listen to this video, and I don't normally play these videos on air, but this video blew my mind because every single thing they say in there is 100% accurate. It's just a matter of time, and this shit is coming right here in Canada if we're not careful.
I agree that we're on that path, but I think we're quite a bit behind them for different reasons. Just a lot of it's just geography. They've had so many migrants and of a much poorer quality than even over here in Canada. We will get there eventually, but what I think is going to happen is kind of what Leighton was saying, is because the thing is, like, there's a lot of old IRA guys who are still alive, like bomb makers, guys who were in the, they called them the Troubles, but like major terrorist attacks in Northern Ireland. I mean, they only signed the Good Friday Agreement that ended those kind of attacks in the 90s. Some of those guys are still alive, right? And there's a lot of expertise in actual fighting of guerrilla warfare in Ireland specifically. And I think, this same George's Cross thing, you can very easily see that as building the network, right? Right now, it's just guys putting up flags, but they're all guys who feel a certain way and they feel strongly about it. And then if and when that straw that breaks the camel's back, that attack comes, then it wouldn't surprise me if you start to see, an explosion here or there, and then it's off to the races. I do have a feeling whatever that direction that conflict goes will be how the Western world goes. I think if the sort of the states back, the Islamic supporting state wins and beats down whatever rebellion the British patriots can muster, I think that's a very bad sign for the Western world in total. And if they win, I think it stops, for the most part, I think it stops that stuff in its tracks.
I agree with Nico that there's a design here. There's a great book by a man named Albert Nock. He was an economist. He wrote a book called Our Enemy of the State. It was written 90 years ago, but he accurately predicted that World War II would happen. He described perfectly how it was going to happen. And the recipe here is these guys who crave power, what they do is they deliberately create emergencies, and they drive up fear, they create division, and then when the emergency happens, that whether it's climate change or a war, a civil war, a religious war, whatever it is, or COVID-19, they use that as an opportunity to seize power by restricting liberty, taking away, seizing, private property, doing all of that. And this is how the state bloats itself up, and ultimately the state itself is destroyed. We've seen this happen in the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany and Maoist China, and it'll happen here. But I think that if there is a design to this, that seems to be what it is. It's a recipe where these guys create, stoke up fear and division in order to cause things where they have to impose like martial law, etc. And so that may be the design that's going on here. That certainly is the well, it's more than hinted at in that video that there is kind of a design here. And I think that as evil as that sounds, I mean, what's a better explanation for why this is happening? Like, why wouldn't we close the borders at least? Great Britain and Canada. You know why? That seems like a very rational.
It's an obvious
thing to
solution,
do,
right? Because the guy in the video is like, "There's no way to stop it." I'm thinking there actually is ways to stop it. If the government just started treating their citizens the same as they do migrants, if they just close the borders, you know, it's not hard. Like the things, and this is kind of in support of your and Nico's argument that it's by design, because the solutions aren't hard. They're just not doing them.
Trump did it. Net immigration has gone down in the U.S. for the first time in 50 years.
Well, Trump could. Trump threw a wrench in the plan.
Yeah.
But before you speak about Trump, the thing is this is by design. If you're, I'm a sales engineer by trade, right? So I like to take information from a customer. That's where I want to be in 5 years. I break it down and I reverse engineer the steps to get to where he wants to go.
Right. Okay.
What does evil want? Control. I think we can all agree on that, right?
Yeah.
What's the only way left right now? What's the ultimate way to control your people? Martial law. Look at what's going on in Ukraine. Since 2019, there hasn't been an election. Zelensky's been in power since 2019. It's been martial law since 2022 or 2023. No election, no nothing. All in the name of war, right? Think about how perfect the plan would be to integrate enough people that don't like you, that don't like what you stand for, that don't like your values, and let them reproduce until what's going on in the UK right now happens. The government are not fucking stupid. They know exactly what they're doing. So what else could this be about if it's not putting two groups of people that do not fundamentally agree with each other and let them go at it, and the day that it blows up, they seize control, they call up martial law, and we're under lockdowns again, and they don't even need to invent a virus to do it. They did it. And what's the biggest clash that ever happened throughout our history? A religious one.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Man, this is not where I thought this show would go. God damn.
No. I've enjoyed the conversation, though. I've learned a lot from listening to you guys.
Yeah, one of the great things about the show is you never know where it's going to go.
I'd like for you, though, if you want to, I'd like to have you back to talk about Bill C-8, and I like your idea of speak about the radicalized judges that we're seeing and speak at it from a loss perspective, because that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed you guys. I've really enjoyed meeting you last week. Bro, hold on. Let me just take this because this is funny. Bumpy, I think you're overthinking it just a bit, Nico. Or you're underthinking. I like to use my brain. Unfortunately, I am a conspiracy theorist too. But I liked having you on. It was great meeting you last week. It was great having you on. Hopefully, we like to have some friends of the show when there's a topic that's trending to bring back. So hopefully you become a regular. I can add you in my Rolodex and I'll bring you back, but hopefully you enjoyed yourself.
Oh, I did. I really did. I learned a lot and I appreciate the conversation. So thanks for having me on. It's been my pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Leighton. That was a lot of fun. I appreciate the time, and hopefully we see you again, because I think you fit in right here, not just with the discussion, but also your haircut.
Yeah.
Just a couple of ball guys shooting the shit. We got to stick together.
I tell my kids, in ancient Egypt, they only let the pharaohs shave their heads.
Yeah, exactly right. I tell my son.
There was a comment earlier, but there was a comment earlier saying, "Hey guys, you're allowed to have other guests."
Yeah, you're allowed to have non-bald guys on the show.
Big thinkers lose their hair. What do you want?
Right. Oh, next time I'll wear my British lawyer wig. You guys will get a kick out of that.
That'd be great.
Very hot. It's made of wool, though. So
yeah, wear your Pope hat next time. You'll fit in with the background.
Yeah, agreed. But thanks for being on. We'll have you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, we appreciate it.
Okay, take care.